documentary on chemical hazards featured southwest Louisiana as a backdrop for industrial intrigue. Monday night, LPB broadcast Trade Secrets, a Bill Moyers report. For local follow-up to the national show, we sought some reaction in this quality of life report.
He is 43 years old. Toxic neuropathy, poisoning, has spread from his nerve cells to his brain.
The special was another Bill Moyers report. In it, the veteran newsman talks with the Louisiana widow of a chemical plant worker.
He was eager.
For the program, more than 1 million industry documents are culled to conclude the chemical industry stalled or killed government rules that would have alerted workers to the dangers of exposure to chemicals like vinyl chloride. Mary-Lee Orr heads the Louisiana Environmental Action Network.
It was an affirmation of what we've been hearing for the last 15 years in our organization. This is not an old story. This is not a 40-year-old story. This is an ongoing, everyday struggle for workers and workers' rights. And 15 years ago, we heard from workers about exposure, about the fact that they felt the company kept it quiet. As recent as a few weeks ago, I had a worker come up to me and say, you know, we have sort of clouds of toxic emissions come through our facility, and sometimes I'm not really even sure myself what it is. So I sure hope you do a good job to try to lower my exposure, because workers are on the front line. It comes to the communities next, but the workers are first.
Pivotal segments in the program were dramatic recreations of meetings of chemical industry leaders and lawyers. Dan Borne with the Louisiana Chemical Association says elements of Moyers' storytelling signal that the reporter wanted more to tell a dramatic story than to tell a complete story.
I have the good fortune of 3 hours a week teaching over at LSU and getting completely away from the chemical industry and teaching a class in mass communication in the manship school. And if that particular program had been handed in as a, quote, documentary, it would have got an F, because it made absolutely no effort to try in any way to reach the other side. It also used docudrama techniques to try to present the industry as a group of Darth Vaders meeting in clandestine places, a clandestine place like Pebble Beach, a clandestine place like the Biltmore, a clandestine place like the Greenbrier. These were all high-rent district places. So the idea was to make it look like that the chemical industry was meeting secretly in these high-rent district places with muted lights in rooms, as if there was some kind of a camera being carried in a briefcase to catch what was going on. He obviously picked and chose documents, and he excerpted things from those documents that were designed to make his point. And I say it, 30, 40, and 50-year-old documents. If that did go on, if it did go on in the way he portrayed it, he certainly should have given the opportunity to those companies to respond and to specifically address those allegations.
By the end of the 90-minute special, Moyers concludes a pattern of mendacity, clouds the judgment of managers down through workers at chemical firms.
Vietnam was winding down, had a lot of people that weren't working, or if they were working for a lot less money, and the plant jobs were very attractive. So if you didn't want to do the work, just say so. Somebody'd wait and take your place.
So you'd worry more about your job than about your health?
I had a wife and 3 kids at home I had to feed, you know. Yeah, you worry more about your health. It wasn't though I told you it was a real health hazard, just so you didn't worry about it.
The film concludes that they've been deceiving us and we've been deceiving ourselves about how dangerous toxic chemicals are. Dale Givens is secretary of the Louisiana Department of Environmental Quality. Do you think that the trend is away from that they've been more honest with themselves in recent years?
Absolutely.
Really?
Absolutely.
Tell me why you feel that way.
If you look at a number of years ago, and I don't have a frame of reference, but let's just say 10 years ago, there was very little self-audit type of situations going on, where if you've got a company that has multiple facilities around the United States or around the world, Those facilities operated pretty much independently and reported up for fiscal matters or whatever to a home office. But today, and starting a few years ago, these corporations will put together a team and bring in inspectors of their own from other locations to take a look at, say, the location over here on the Mississippi River and compare what they're doing there because of the liabilities that exist today from just such a type of thing as the Moyer's report or any other situation that would generate lawsuits or penalty actions by state, federal government, or third-party lawsuits. They realize that it's important to have information on what's going on inside.
They've got to know themselves.
They have to know themselves. Now, the big question is whether or not
should they ever be sued for one thing, but
I'm sorry?
Should they ever be sued for one thing, but
yes, right.
They would want to have that data.
Yes.
On their own.
It becomes an issue then of when to share and what they may share, which they learned with the regulatory agencies.
I think it's like asking a citizen to just not verify their statements for the IRS. Just say, IRS, trust me. Or if the policeman comes up, you know, you trust me, I didn't run the red light, or I didn't do that. I think you have to verify.
But most people do tell the truth on their taxes because they're afraid of getting audited.
Well, because we have a system in place that it'd be difficult for people not to do that.
But it's different for industry. They're not audited.
Historically, they've shown by documentation that they've made a concerted effort to keep the truth from workers in the community. In their own words, and voluminous, there's a lot of paperwork between them talking about the fact that they wanted to not let people know that this was dangerous, that this would cause cancer, actually injure their workers and community people, and that they needed to keep that liability within the corporation. I mean, it's not as if they were doing the right thing. They've been doing something that's been very damaging to the health and the environment of our world, really. It's frightening. I think people were horrified. Some of our folks said, I couldn't sleep after I watched that special. After I saw Miss Ross and Ron and those folks and what they've been through, I really couldn't believe it. They knew those things existed, but to see it that way, as you said, in one story, it was really very disturbing for them.
The LCA's Dan Borne and Lean's Mary-Lee Orr can agree that alert and involved citizens are crucial to working through future agreements.
When it became obvious that a particular kind of cancer was being tied to vinyl chloride monomer, regulations were implemented, and from that point forward, workers who began working under those regulations have been clear of that one particular kind of cancer.
Is there at least now a better self-awareness in the industry of how honest it's being with itself, with its workers, in its management decisions?
With 12 major laws on the books, with civil penalties and criminal penalties that can put people in the penitentiary for hiding things, like those things that were alleged 30 and 40 years ago. Those types of penalties didn't exist back then. And with the public scrutiny that we have now, the transparency of this business, where we have community advisory panels working with our plants, learning more about what we do, how we do it, and why we do it. It's a different industry. It's a different regulatory scheme.
We hold them accountable. We trust, but we verify. When industries that are good industries want to come to the table, then we work on issues that we have a common goal for, which is the bottom line for us is health. Healthy workplace, a healthy community. And if they show a sincere effort, we move forward. But those folks who aren't, we have to take the action that we need to. Go to our senators, go to the legislature, file a lawsuit if necessary to hold those folks accountable.
That's our report for this evening. Next week, the Opelousas Museum of Art story that was scheduled for tonight's show includes some of Clementine Hunter's best work. That's next week. Plus a preview of an important state capital controversy affecting prescription drugs. Who gets to decide which medicines you need? And we'll be in Lafayette to hear from people along the route of a new section of I-49. Some homeowners are not happy the big highway is coming through town. Thanks for joining us. Until next week, that's the state we're in.